My military life prepared me for corporate and law firm life in many ways. First of all, the intense work ethic that gets established when you first join the military and throughout your career carries on greatly through both corporate and legal life. People who are most successful in the military are those who have a strong commitment to getting the mission accomplished and getting the job done. And if you're able to take that same frame of mind and bring it into the corporate and law firm world, success is almost inevitable as people strive to find people that have that drive to succeed. I think in my role of working with both early stage companies and large established corporations, I've seen a lot of differences between the two. But to me, the most interesting difference and the most dynamic difference is when you're working with a small early stage company, their decision-making process and their ability to react to what's happening is far quicker, and they're far more agile than a large corporation. Usually, if a small company calls me up in the morning and says, we have this issue, what should we do to address it? Oftentimes by the end of the day or the next day, not only have we come up with a solution, but they've called a board meeting, we've discussed with the board of directors, and within 48 hours we've solved whatever this big issue was. With larger corporations, it's a long, drawn-out, bureaucratic approach where admittedly they have more stakeholders to think about and more things to weigh, but not necessarily larger risk. There were a lot of positives to being non-traditional, and there were actually some negatives that made it a little more difficult. I'll start with positives. It was coming out of 8 years in the military into a college environment. I was able to take on a larger course load and manage my time a lot more efficiently than a lot of the other students when you're 17 or 18 and trying to deal with a course load and homework and maybe a part-time job. That's your first time having to deal with sort of complicated time management issues after you've been serving, especially in leadership roles in the military where you have to manage a team of 15 or 20 people around the clock for days at a time. Trying to manage, study for a test or manage some homework assignments is, in the big scheme of things, not very difficult. So I had that advantage. Experience allows you to manage your time better. And what it also does is when you've been out in the world prior to coming to college, you understand the value of a good education and the value that a school like Kansas State can provide, and you really appreciate what you're doing when you're here in a learning environment. I think a lot of traditional students coming straight out of high school into college they understand what people say, how important college is and how important education is, but I don't think they really appreciate it because they haven't seen the differences it has in society as a whole. So those are the advantages of coming as a non-traditional student. On the flip side, it was, from a social perspective, it's far more difficult when you're a 25-year-old in classrooms full of 17, 18, 19-year-olds. It's a lot harder to kind of fit in socially. You're at different points in your life. You're at different levels of maturity. What was important to me at that point, what my priorities were much different from the priorities of a lot of my peers. And that made it did make it very difficult. That being said, a lot of the students in the College of Business here at K-State are far more mature than other people I've experienced at that age in my life. So there was a group of them that I was able to socially get along with and study with. There are a lot of things in my life that have helped me get to what I consider to be a very successful position. The first thing was goal setting. Before I got out of the military, I knew that I wanted to come to Kansas State, and I knew that I wanted to go to a top 5 law school. And to do that, because of sort of the archaic law school admissions program that's in place, it's very hard to go to I won't say non-Ivy League school, but a state school like Kansas State, and get into a top 5 law school because you don't have the pedigree that they're necessarily looking for. But that was my goal. My goal was to do very well at Kansas State. My hope was to graduate to top of my class, go to a top 5 law school, and practice in a very big, good international law firm. Those were my goals. I was able to accomplish that by, first of all, working very hard when I was here. The professors at this school are second to none, and they identified fairly early that I was motivated and I had a plan, and everyone here went out of their way to help me help me accomplish my goals. They helped me find extracurricular activities that could do well in my law school applications, and the school, Kansas State, was very helpful in me getting into the University of Virginia. Once I got to law school, it was interesting because the law school experience, my military background helped me a lot in law school experience, because in law school they teach through the Socratic method, where you're on call for an entire class period, with the teacher just asking you question after question and interrogating you throughout the class, which for some is a pretty intimidating situation, because oftentimes you don't know when you're going to be on call. You come in and the teacher calls your name, and all of a sudden that entire hour it's you against that professor. But after having been in war zones and getting shot at, going into a classroom where a teacher's going to ask me a bunch of questions is not, there's no stress at all associated with that. So I think those two things, plus probably the third most important thing, in my legal career, the thing that I've done the most to differentiate myself and to succeed is by discovering fairly early how I'm different from everybody else and how I stand out from my peers, and making sure that everyone around me, everyone senior to me, could see how I was different and could see how I could provide something that maybe some of my peers couldn't. And throughout your entire life, as you're going through life, if you can differentiate yourself from those around you, and if you can show what characteristics you have that others might not have, people will turn to you, and people will help lift you up and succeed. I think for those who want to be successful, both current students and for young alumni, I have three pieces of advice. The first one is always be yourself, and I know everyone says that all the time, and it's an overused phrase, but if you truly stick to who you are and you truly stick to your values, it'll take you further in life. So that's the first thing. I think the second thing is work hard. Again, that's another one of those things in life that everyone says, but if you truly work nonstop to accomplish the goals that you want to accomplish, there's nothing that can stop you. If you set good goals and you work towards those goals, people will see that and they'll recognize you for what you are, and you'll be successful. And the third and last thing is you really can't do it on your own. My whole life I used to think that success came from, it was all about you being successful. But all along the way, there's going to be people that are going to pick you up and help you become successful. When I was at Kansas State, there were several professors here who helped me, helped focus me and helped send me on my way. I met some professors in law school that were the same way, and throughout my career, I found people like that. And not only is it your peers, but it's mentors. I mean, find a good mentor. There's nothing better in this world than having a mentor who can help. They've been through it all. They can help lead you down the path that you need to go down to be successful.